Hello and welcome to this interview for the Together We Rise series. And I'm really delighted to be sharing with you our next guest, who is Shelby Leigh. Thank you, Shelby, so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I would love to read your bio here to introduce you to our audience. So you are a highly sought after trauma therapist, a twice certified coach, a consultant, and a licensed professional counselor. Shelby describes her process, her methodology, as being a seamless weave of nervous system regulation and co-regulation support, somatic practices, attachment theory, and trauma-informed mindfulness. And when Shelby's not doing all of that amazing work with people, you're going to find her driving down a dirt road, taking in a gorgeous view, road tripping, wandering in the woods, rafting a river, midnight canoe stargazing, flying somewhere tropical, typing half-written memoirs, taking long naps, chasing sunsets, and you frequently ask yourself, what is the most loving thing I can do in this moment?
Hmm.
I love that. I love picturing you in all those places, having all of those different experiences.
I feel very, very fortunate. I get to just be adventuring in nature every moment I'm not sitting right here.
Mm, mm. You're a kindred spirit in that sense.
Yes.
Ah, and whilst we were talking before we hit the record button, we were talking about co-regulation, and I would really like to dive deeper into that topic with you and to share with our audience. And we were talking about, the difference between self-regulation and co-regulation. So maybe if we just start there and let's see what unfolds from that.
Yeah. Some folks, me included, might even say that self-regulation, it doesn't really exist.
Hmm.
And it's controversial. And the reason why we might say something that radical in a world filled with practitioners teaching self regulation right now is because co regulation, where we learn to regulate together in connection,
Mm,
is something that we were meant to learn either in the womb or just after birth in those first years of development with our primary caregivers, maybe our parents or those who are caring for us. And co-regulation is something that we biologically need in order to thrive, in order to
mm,
know who we are, in order to understand our feelings, our sensations, our world around us, to even have an identity.
mm,
We make sense of the world and ourselves through connection with another.
mm,
And so when that has a rupture, which it does for so many of us, when our
mm,
primary caregivers aren't attuned or they're anxious or there's neglect or abuse or something happens in the environment, it ruptures that connection, that attunement, that way that we learn to take up nourishment and feel nurtured.
mm,
So when we are in a healing process and we're trying to do it all by ourselves, it misses the mark. We
mm,
don't get to those pre-verbal places that early in life so many of us experience, whether big or small,
mm,
where we can't fully emerge as ourselves because we're now in a survival mode because we're not being nurtured or nourished.
mm,
We don't touch those pre-verbal places when we're trying to do it all by ourselves, doing self-regulation work. We have to heal in relationships, which feels like the cosmic joke for someone like me, where I'm like, how could I do that? I don't trust relationships. They've all been lacking of connection and trust and nurturing and
mm,
feeling seen, heard, understood. But when we can heal in connection slowly over time with the right people, that experience of regulation comes on board in such a different way than
Mm.
if we're trying to do it all by ourselves through
Mm.
self-regulation practices. What would you
Mm.
say to all of that?
I mean, I've got a question for you,
Sure.
actually. When you say it kind of comes on board in a different way, can you kind of expand on that? Like, how might I feel that difference in my system or
Mhm.
within my psyche? How would I notice that difference?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is on a grand scale. These days we see so many folks with autoimmune disorders, chronic health,
Yeah.
um, chronic pain, chronic everything.
Mm.
And we start to see things like autoimmune disorders beginning to heal. Gut issues start to resolve themselves,
Mm.
literally being able to take up nourishment from food, and then our immune systems and our health start operating differently because there is a genuine physiological sense of nourishment that comes
Mm.
through that connection with
Mm.
another,
Mm.
with a safe enough another.
Mm.
Something in our bodies registers a sense of somatic safety here.
Mm.
I find doing self regulation practices. So many of us have already been working so hard for so long in a state of survival that adding more work, like doing it on our own, actually adds the exhaustion and can make those complex issues exacerbated. For a
Mm.
little while, it moves energy. So it does feel good. It's like, oh, something's happening here. It feels different. But for me, it's more surface level. I don't feel those deeper changes like better sleep, happier gut, immune changes. It's like lighter. It feels like my mindset's kind of beginning to change, but those foundational level of our operating systems don't tend to get the change they need through that um, on our own kind of work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I see that happening in my work, working with clients, working with groups, like where am I, and even in my own personal experience. So I've started doing circling. So I go to circling with a local person who's also on this summit, Jim Eaton. And what I find really interesting about that is that people kind of arrive and they're not separate from themselves, but they're separate from each other. So everyone kind of arrives, and then we go through certain processes together. And then as we get towards like the last kind of third of the evening, people tend to be kind of like reaching out for each other. And then there's like bodies leaning into each other. Or
Yeah.
maybe it happens halfway through, but there's this natural shift that starts to happen. And I can feel the group nervous system coming into regulation, coming into co-regulation. And in that place, we're all really attuned to each other.
Yeah.
And within the circling process, it allows for kind of emergent themes to arise, which can then be kind of, we can bring our attention to them. And I've been
Yeah.
watching this, week after week. And it's like, isn't this really interesting, Because I'm here as a participant, not leading. So I get to kind of watch through a different lens. And it's like the same thing happens each week. We arrive, we're all in our own little thing. And then slowly we come together. There's enough regulation. And then the bigger healing can happen.
Circling is the most perfect example because there's two things coming up for me. We can't make co-regulation happen.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
happens in that structured space where we create the conditions for safety to
Mm.
emerge. And then as our bodies and nervous systems sink in, like you're saying, over time and realize that there's space that we can take up here is safe enough to emerge, then we become available for co-regulation. We can't
Mm.
make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
But also, uh, co-regulation can't happen just in a high vibe, think positive, environment, it happens through thousands of ruptures and repairs in a safe enough
Mm.
space with safe enough people to really be able to be connected enough through those more challenging moments. Intimacy is created through thousands of ruptures and repairs. And when I walk into a circle, every single time, the younger parts of me walk in and I'm bristly and I'm scared and I'm irritated and I'm closed and I don't want anyone going anywhere near my heart or my body. And then when it's facilitated really well and held with
Mm.
a lot of choice in a trauma informed way, by the end, I'm like melted like honey, because there's space for me to be me with all of it,
Mm.
not just showing up with the high vibe part or I know how to do the circling thing.
Yeah.
It's all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. I want to circle back to this self-regulation piece. And for me, what I see happening is that in this kind of culture to be hyper independent, which is a trauma response in itself, it's like, well, I need to go away and do this thing that's going to make me feel better. But it's actually just feeding into those very early attachment patterns of, well, there's no one here to help me. So I've just got to fend for myself and just kind of get on and do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you name it as a trauma response in our culture.
Mm.
It makes so much sense that we have created a world where we all feel like we have to just muscle through and do it on our own. And the independence comes with a badge of honor.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But it also comes with a body that is incredibly tired,
Mm.
overworked, in a
Yeah,
state usually of overgiving and under receiving.
yeah.
And we do that for such a good reason, for seeking a state of love or safety or belonging. And if I can just do this on my own, then I won't be too much, and I won't be overwhelming or I won't be a burden, or maybe I'll be seen in this positive light if I'm able to do it all alone. And we really seek that, where can we belong if we just bring this part of ourselves? And it happens a lot in that independent way. But it's the continuation of patriarchy, of
Mm.
the oppression that's happened to folks of all genders, that we have
Mm.
to do it alone in order to be well or successful or whatever it is. And it just makes me sad because it's not true. We're so much more
Mm.
powerful and inspiring and energetic and enlivened in connection.
Yeah. To go back to my circling experience this week, I felt really tired when I went, and we were in this kind of a kind of surrendered leadership kind of situation where no one was leading, and it's just whatever was emerging was attended to. And I was like resting back, I was leaning back, my body felt very, very tired. And I was very curious, kind of tracking myself and how I felt in relationship to the group. And there was this part that arose. I was like, I kind of want to leave. I was like, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I enjoy coming here. There's a part that wants to leave. And then there was a part that was quite checked out. And I was kind of, looking at the wall and looking around. And my narrative was like, well, I'm tired and I'm resting. So this is what it looks like. I have to kind of lie down and not be super relational. And then at some point I named this. I said, what I'm noticing, and I know reiterated what I've just shared. And it was so interesting because I sat up, my spine was upright. I was looking around, I was getting eye contact. I started to move closer to the person next to me, and we had like our feet were kind of playing footsie together. And I think someone else had another one of my feet. And it was literally as I kind of came back, then I was like the missing link in the web. and we all kind of connected up.
Hmm.
It's like, isn't that fascinating? My narrative is like, when I'm tired, I have to kind of not be part of it. But actually, um, it was my tiredness was probably overlaid with dissociation.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And when I
Yeah.
could actually bring myself back into social connection, naming, hey, I feel tired, I don't feel like I normally do. Does this version of me get to belong here? Does this
Yeah.
quieter version get to belong? Is this identity okay? Because I'm not being like, yeah, let's make everything happen, but I'm actually being like withdrawn. Does she also get to be here?
Yes. Ugh, I'm learning that too right now. Yeah, that it's safe to rest
Mm,
and be connected. I don't have to
mm,
be performing. I don't have to be putting on a show. I don't have to be in motion.
mm,
I don't have to go away to hide when I need to rest or sleep. I can be in the middle of the living room, and cared for and part of that web
yeah,
that you're
yeah,
talking about.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's so different.
And I think about, other cultures where you'll get the whole family sleeping in one room. And it's like here we all get to kind of rest together. We get to co-regulate together in that really vulnerable space that is sleep. And yet we're all kind of doing it on our own, or maybe with one other person in the room. But, we've probably all spent big chunks of our lives sleeping on our own. And that's kind of normal. And I
Yeah.
think like my mammal body tells me otherwise. I mean, my cat seeks me out at nighttime. And if I
Mhm.
shut the door, he scratches. So it's just like, oh, I just leave it open. But he seeks me out. He wants to come in. He wants to get close. He wants that co-regulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he knows.
Yeah. And I think, when we do feel safe enough around others, which can take time, that we
Mm,
can get that sleep, that nourishing,
mm,
restorative, restful sleep.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Often when people come in really dysregulated, the first thing we work towards is how can we support sleep to happen? That's the very, very first
mm.
system that needs to be supported because we can't really bring regulation anywhere else until we get that restoration, that nurturing from that kind of rest. And so
Mm.
I just love what the picture that you're painting around different cultures, different ways, and what we might really want and need.
I'm really interested in how you support people to get better sleep because I imagine pretty much everyone who is going to be watching this is going to be like, oh yeah, sleep, yeah, me, and
Mhm,
particularly anyone who's like a menopausal or postmenopausal woman because that's a whole
mhm.
sleep deprivation journey. Yeah, I'm really curious what's your starting point with that?
Well, you could start in a couple of places. The co-regulating nervous system work that I do supports the nervous system to be
Mm,
able to rest and to sleep more easily. So a lot of
mm,
people report right away, within a month, not even, that
mm,
what my sleep is better. And I
uh-huh.
think it's because we start bringing safety on board. And
Mhm,
naturally, the body goes, oh, I don't have to have all those alarm bells on. I don't have to be on alert. I don't have to be taking care of all of the things while I'm sleeping.
mhm.
And then you can look at, like I just started wearing this aura ring,
Oh
and
yeah,
there's all
yeah, yeah.
sorts of different ways to track like how you're getting to sleep and your own personal patterns. And I've been so shocked to learn, oh, I really actually need to go to bed about an hour earlier than I thought in order to sleep well throughout the entire night. Or I need to
Mm,
eat a couple hours earlier. Just sometimes we think it's like digging to the bottom of the emotional well, looking for all the things that might be bothering us, but sometimes it's that simple. Like I just need to drink more water or to get some of these more basic needs met that we're just unaware of because we're busy taking care of everything else, right?
yeah, yeah. I've been looking into getting one of those rings.
It's
You've
really
piqued my
fun.
interest again. Yeah, you get loads of data, don't you, that you can analyze. I love that.
So much. Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah.
So once you've got kind of people sleeping better, you see kind of symptoms beginning to change, the gut health patterns changing, the chronic health problems alleviating. Like,
Mhm.
where do you take people to next?
Well, often, but not always, what happens is when people begin to sleep better, they have a little more energy.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, when our bodies are not used to having energy, it registers as a threat. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, we go, oh my goodness, I'm not in this state of overwhelm, collapse, exhaustion. I can't. And there's all this energy. And when we're not used to just saying, oh, this is energy, we go, something's wrong. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is, what am I worried about? Just fixating on something to find that could be wrong because our nervous systems are designed to go, where's the threat? And so more
Yeah.
energy goes, something's wrong. And so we have to very mindfully and slowly welcome this new energy with a lens of curiosity and care and just reminding ourselves, of course, this is maybe a little uncomfortable. It's a little edgy. We've probably wished for this level of energy and aliveness for a long time. And there's almost always going to be a part that goes, unfamiliar. I don't know. And then we'll kind of like fall back into those old patterns that get in the way of us resting here for a while. Just going, what's
Mm.
this like? What's this like? Sometimes people will just burn through that energy really fast. They've been waiting for that energy for years and decades even. And then they just want to just consume it because they've been waiting for it. So we actually have to build a relationship with the ways, the energy, and the aliveness. Or if you've just been in the opposite boat where you're just so overwhelmed, there's a calm or there's even a boredom, a quietness to go, oh, it's safe to feel this too. And we just hang out there. We go slowly.
Mm.
Our bodies take so much more time than our minds. I could say it's safe to feel this, but my body needs time to go, okay, I am okay here. I don't need to fall back into that collapse or propel myself into that experience of fight or flight. It is
Mm.
safe here. The other shoe might
Mm.
not drop, actually. I can
Mm.
dream here. So we take time to rest a while in these new states together in connection
Mm.
and see what wants to happen from there. And we just
Mm.
keep following where the energy goes. We heal
Mm.
in spirals, it ebbs
Yeah.
and flows. So we just have to go, oh, that was a little too much, or not quite enough. And together we work towards what we're going for.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I when we had our introductory call a couple of days ago, we touched into shame as a topic we thought we might like to talk about, and kind of the corresponding shame physiology. So what happens in our nervous systems and our bodies as we begin to experience shame. And I think this is something that everyone who's listening and watching this can resonate with. Like, we all experience shame, and I think it's one of the most debilitating emotional experiences that we can have. So yeah, I'd love your thoughts on that from a nervous system perspective.
I genuinely believe that shame and rage are two things that we have not been taught how to welcome into
Mm.
our lives and sit with and be with and care for. And I really believe that is the root of all of our health issues and our disconnection issues. And the harm that comes to Mother Earth, like just and beyond. Not being able to hold shame. We numb, we check out, we dissociate because we are taught when shame is present, I am bad, I am wrong.
Yeah.
And we turn it as an attack on ourselves, but so often we do it unconsciously. Instead, it just like
Mm.
brews inside of us as this gnawing or this weight or a constriction or a rigidity, nauseousness, and if we don't know that it's there, if we don't know that it's speaking to us and really underneath how we're operating in our everyday, it sucks all of our energy. And we're not taught how to turn towards it because it's so painful to turn towards I am bad, I am wrong. So many of us developed that shame from living in a situation where what was happening around us was bad and wrong.
Mm.
And it wasn't safe enough to go, oh, those people or that thing outside of me is not safe or is bad. Or so we go, oh, it must be me. That's how we keep ourselves safe. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
that sense of, if we sever that sense of belonging, it's, oh, I'm bad. So we carry that shame. It just eats away at us. When we turn towards it, it's hard. It's painful. It's full of grief. It's full of rage. It's full of everything,
Mm.
everything.
Mm.
But it's also, I believe, full of our power. And so if there's any part of us that's uncomfortable with having power, we have to learn how to just embrace the shame so that we can get there.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I wonder if we can kind of take it into a very specific place where shame shows up, which is in perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to be perfect in order to be loved and accepted. I have to be perfect in the way I relate, in the way which I present myself, in the way in which I show up in the world, in my work. I have to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we fail to be perfect because it's completely impossible to be perfect. And then there's that kind of like, I'm wrong. Then the shame really kind of like comes in and erodes that sense of self. And I'm seeing it as a theme that's kind of really showing up in my client work, and out there in the world, in friendships, etc. So I'd really love your take on, you know, like strategies to work with perfectionism. That would probably really help our audience.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, gosh, I'm just thinking how shame is such a recipe for disconnection,
Mm.
both with ourselves and others.
Mm.
What if we could really just like bring it to each other? And when it comes to perfectionism, you named all those things and also body, right?
Oh yeah,
Being
yeah, yeah.
perfect around how we look and how we present ourselves. And gosh, how do we work with it? S- Uh, the only way I know how is through learning to befriend it.
Mm.
When we feel it coming on, when we see it, so often we can go into those places of, I have to fix this. I
Yeah.
have to get rid of it. What's wrong? What's wrong with me? It just gets a never ending spiral. And I don't know about you, but I'm sick of figuring out what happened to me, what's wrong with me, why I do what I do. That's so much labor that I am just tired of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when I don't go to, I just have to fix this. I hate this. I want it to go away. I want it to be different. How might I befriend this? How
Mm.
might love care for this? How might love hold this? And I believe it was Gay Hendricks. He
Mm.
wrote in one of his books back in the 80s, like learning how to love yourself, this hack that I really loved and I use a lot, which was, okay, if you can't just like say, I love myself, It's, I love myself for not knowing how, or
Mm,
I love myself for hating my body. I love myself for not knowing how to get this right.
mm,
I love myself for not wanting to love myself. Like, how far back can we go to just bring a little sense of warmth and care? It helps a lot, I think, when we just can find a part of ourselves
mm,
that cares, even when it feels like all of us is caught up in that loop of shame and perfectionism. What do you think?
mm. I I see the kind of the role of like the critic, the inner and outer critic, and how that kind of like comes into this kind of like shame-based identity, and it just kind of perpetuates the stories that are there. And, to me, it seems like that love, acceptance, forgiveness is kind of like an antidote to that. So what you were describing from Gay Hendricks, exactly that, learning to bring love to these places that haven't known love,
Mm.
bring love to these places that are resisting love, creating this kind of field of love where these parts can be and without needing to change, but they get to be loved as they are. And we get to kind of really understand the roles that these kind of shame-based identities have served for us and how they
Yeah,
have kept us safe. And I found that in that kind of like loving acceptance and thanking those parts for all the work that they've done, then something can begin to shift.
absolutely. Yeah, even the critic
Mm,
gets to belong here. It gets a
mm,
place.
mm,
It gets to be appreciated and cared for.
mm.
We just have to know that every single behavior has a positive intention, even if
Yeah,
it's not working anymore.
yeah.
And so acceptance. And truthfully, I have been working with clients for 20 years now in
Mm,
various types of healing work between Buddhist meditation, mindfulness, therapy, coaching, and this nervous system regulation work. I find as the body becomes safer, we just naturally become kinder. We don't have to go, how might I say that? It just happens, We don't have to dig too deep. Something
mm,
happens in us where we feel the support around us and
mm,
inside of us more effortlessly and
mm,
easily
mm,
as our bodies and our physiology begins to melt and soften and receive
mm.
receive support.
And I'm aware we've been having this conversation in quite a broad context. And, a lot of people watching this are people who are either facilitators or they want to be facilitators. And of course, everything that we've been talking about applies to them, but kind of even more so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because when we're holding space for one person or for a group of people, then our relationship to our inner landscape, to our physiology, to our nervous system is um, is what kind of drives everything else.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people can feel it
Mm,
the moment they walk in the door. As a facilitator, how we are sitting inside of ourselves. And it's not that we don't need to show up perfectly. That could
mm,
totally be translated that way
yeah,
as
yeah,
this
yeah.
image of how we think a facilitator should look and sound and be. It's more like an invitation of how can we rest into support in ourselves inside and outside of when we're facilitating so that there is a steadiness, a welcomeness.
Mm,
So when people show up, they can feel that we are available for connection in a true way.
Yeah.
And that means that we're welcoming the parts of us that go, I feel insecure right now. What if
Mm.
nobody shows up?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
all the things. It's not like I'm great, I'm confident, I'm good, I'm perfect. It's no, I'm a vulnerable human and I'm holding this space and I'm holding that too.
Yeah. I often talk about the messiness of being a human being whilst also doing this job of facilitation, space holding, being a practitioner, whatever label we want to put on it. And I think in the past there's been this kind of putting the facilitator up on a pedestal. They're the guru, they're the one that knows everything, they're the one that's going to fix me. And of course, we don't want to be in those types of relationships because that's not really where the healing happens. More harm is likely to happen in those places. And so, you know, we have to kind of learn to dance this fine line between being real and authentic, but not bringing too much of our challenge and difficulty into the space. You know, I see
Mm-hmm.
it a lot on social media, and I'm like, seriously? Like, where, sharing our deepest vulnerabilities has become a trend, people
Mm-hmm.
sobbing on reels. And I'm just like, what does that create inside it doesn't create trust. It doesn't create, it's too far. It's gone beyond the line, right? So
Yeah,
I'd love your kind of take on that. This kind of
I'm
open
with you.
exposure.
Yeah, I prefer to share vulnerably after I've kind of integrated and worked through the things that feel really raw and
Yeah,
edgy for me.
yeah.
And sometimes it takes about 5 to 10 years, not 5 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I tried for a few years, maybe 5 years ago, to that trend of really being very personal and raw, and it didn't feel safe to me.
Mm,
I didn't feel good in
mm,
myself. And as a practitioner, I have to feel safe and boundaried enough that I don't feel too wide open as people come into my care. And for each of us, there's going to be a different dance and a different level.
yeah.
But I really think we all need to make sure we feel so regulated and held and supported in what we share. And I don't anymore share too much about my own journey, maybe sometimes on podcasts here and there,
Mm.
but I find just as many people find me and we build trust. And the longer I've been working, the less I share. And
Mm.
I had a woman who's a psychotherapist in her 70s who was a client say, I've sat with so many therapists and you say less and do less than anybody I've ever worked with. Yet I feel more held.
Wow.
And all I said was, less of me means more of you.
Mm. I
And I
love that.
think we forget out of our own securities, not even, it's a genuine and well-meaning intention that when we have this wide open space for our clients to come and go as they please, to show up, to lean in, to lean out, and we're just this steady, regulated, for the most part,
Mm.
caring human, that we give them back their healing. We give them back their life because we're really here to shine the light on them. We're not here to show them what we can do, how we can help them, the insights we see for them. That's too much. I am
Mm.
exhausted doing that. I did that.
Mm.
But when I can be here with a wide open heart full of love and I'm in my body, I'm regulated, I'm here for the conversations, but it's really about them and not my personal challenges or journey or what happened yesterday. Something happens for
Mm.
them that could change their life for their lifetime.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's a
And that
really
doesn't mean we
powerful
can't share
message.
though.
Yeah.
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 I
Yeah.
kind of saw somebody share something recently, a coach into their community, and I kind of had a strong body reaction to it. Thought, wow, that's a lot. And then, I kind of tuned into it, and I was like, wow, this person's kind of like looking to get support from their community, but that's the community they're in service to. And it's like, wow, this feels like the parentified child situation playing out here. And it's like, so as coaches, therapists, healers, practitioners, facilitators, we have to be even more mindful about getting our needs met, but not through our client relationships, not through our facilitation groups.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you teach trauma-informed care, and it makes me, so do I, but it just makes me think about that. When we are so aware that those people that are coming to us, I don't care if you're a yoga teacher or a psychotherapist or a coach, you hold power.
Yes.
And there is an attachment thing happening where people are looking towards us to be held, seen, understood, guided. And even if we don't want that responsibility, even if we wish the power was perfectly equal, because of the dynamic, they're coming to us, they're paying us money, there's a power dynamic.
Yeah.
And it creates that attachment dynamic. It's already there. And when we're not aware of it, of that these people are coming to us as likely the younger parts of themselves, we have to hold steady. Just like that secure home base, that good enough parent, so that they can come and go with all of the parts of themselves without feeling like they need to take care of us as the parentified child. That's trauma-informed care. We're aware that we're working with people and the trauma they carry. Yeah.
There's so many kind of layers of kind of complexity that we need to hold when we are facilitating and coaching and holding space for people. What would you say is like the number one skill that somebody who is looking to up level their facilitation at this time, what do you think the number one skill is that collectively you see is missing? Let's put it that way.
Big question. I'm thinking about the practitioners in my body of work group, which is a consult and supervision group for therapists and coaches in the same space. And it's not what we think it would be. It's not learn this technique or this modality. The one thing that I hear most from them at the end of each group is, I get to feel safe too.
Yes.
I get to have boundaries. I get to have agreements that make sense for me and my client. I get to say yes and no. I feel safer than I've ever felt in this group, which helps me feel like I can actually have the availability to do that for others and with others. I think it's the power of co-regulation and connection, that we just need spaces to know we will never have all the answers and all the right interventions and all the perfect modalities and more education, more certifications. I've got to know that I'm safe in myself and in community so that I can be available. Yeah. And I get to make mistakes.
Exactly. I mean, this is the kind of theme that we've kind of come back to in so many of these conversations that I've been having, which is, it's really about as a facilitator, your relationship with yourself, that is primary. And then whatever capacity you have left over to be in service to others is the capacity you have left over to be in service to others. Rather than, I need to be in service to others, and that's going to take this amount of capacity, and I've got like that much left for myself.
No.
Which is what I see happening a lot.
And clients will feel that too.
Yeah.
And they'll start trying to give to us unconsciously.
Yeah.
And so we have got to feel more full and supported. And that actually means doing less.
Yeah.
It means working with that perfectionist part, that shame, that I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, and remembering that we are enough.
Yeah.
When we're connected, when we're here, we don't have to overgive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds easy, right?
Yeah. There's so much more that we could talk about here, but if I was to pose you like one more question, and then I want to give time for you to share your free gift before we wrap up. And this summit is called Together We Rise, Building Resilient Futures. So this is a kind of message of hope. So as, I don't know what you call a collection of facilitators, a crowd of facilitators maybe, but as we kind of gathered here as people who facilitate, as people who hold space, what hope do you see for the future by teaching facilitators the skills that you have been teaching for the last many, many, many years?
I just took a deep breath when you said that. And it's really that. And that we could all take a deep breath and rest into support and feel that deep sense of trust in ourselves and in each other and beyond. Really feel that we are held. And when that happens, I mean, I'm just looking out here at the river and the trees and nature and the animal, the dogs, and it's like, then that gets attention. Then we have enough capacity to take care of change on a bigger level, to take care of the children and Mama Earth and the unrest and unsettled relationships on a bigger scale. When we can bring kindness and we feel full and we feel regulated and like, we've got this, we're inspired, we're confident. That's power. When we're in our power, we're unstoppable. We can do anything. And the world needs it.
Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful message.
Yeah.
Coming back into that regulated power. Anchoring back into our connection with nature.
Yeah. What would you say to that?
Probably something along similar lines, but I think it's coming back to our wholeness, which never got lost, but it got obscured along the way, and doing all the things that enable us to do that. So for me, spending a lot of time in nature brings me back into that remembering of my fullness and my wholeness, and doing everything I can to stay regulated so that I can be in that place in my nervous system, that ventral vagus state, where I'm open, I'm loving, I'm joyful, I'm hopeful, I'm connected, and I'm connected with life. And from that place, it's like anything is possible. And I just see as we get more and more people kind of coming together and regulating, co-regulating, that we can begin to build this kind of stronger capacity together to be able to take action, to be able to think outside of the box, to be
Yeah.
able to see different solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got goosebumps. Mm-hmm.
So I know we're going to have to wrap it up shortly, but I want to give you time to share with our audience that you have got an amazing free gift that you have created for them. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So I have this 7-day experience called Welcoming Presence. And this specific nervous system regulation, co-regulation, somatic work is part of those 7 days. And even though it's recorded, there is a vibe of togetherness. There are thousands of people around the world who are listening to this course and who send me emails every week saying they do it again and again and again because it helps them feel connected. And so at any given moment, I really like to just think that there are people leaning into this. And so it's poetic. There's some talks about a lot of what we talked about today
Mm,
and some deep nervous system support.
mm,
And it was just such a labor of love. I enjoyed it so much. I woke up every morning at 5 o'clock by my fireplace and just felt into what wanted to be shared and put it into that 7 days. And I think y'all will really feel it.
mm. Beautiful. And that's going to be available in the notes that go along with this interview series. What an amazing gift. I know people are going to get an awful lot out of that. The medicine that you give is so like honey,
Mm.
sweet and soothing, and kind of there's kind of like a feeling of it being wrapped around and yeah, cozy.
Oh, thank you for that reflection.
Mm,
That lands right
mm,
here.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you ever so much for your time. I really so appreciate it. I'm sure that everyone who's been listening has really taken on board what you've shared and has received that into their, not just in their minds, but into their hearts, into their bodies.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to know you and grateful
Mm,
to know you and looking forward to whatever unfolds and just sending a little message to all the people that are here with your summit, just wanting to appreciate them for giving
mm,
themselves the
mm.
gift of showing up with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.